ready.
There, fellow tech enthusiasts. Welcome to an exciting episode of LifeNCyber. I'm Josh, as always, and I'm being joined by my co-hosts, Kenny, Shannon, and John. And it seems like Kenny might have touched his mic again.
Didn't touch anything. It's fine.
How's everybody doing today?
Kenny touched his mic.
I am trying to figure out why it's so blurry, but to be fair, it really suits how I'm feeling today. So
There's the fog.
I'm going to let this be just a visual representation of emotion. This is art.
I need to move my monitor. Looks like I'm looking at the door behind me all suspiciously.
Are you feeling suspicious?
Possibly.
Ooh,
Awesome.
Do that again. Hold on. What was that?
That was sassy.
Yeah, put your glasses back on. Do that again. I've never been so aroused.
Oh, man.
I put the
Don't edit
lotion
that
away.
out.
All right, what are we covering today, boys?
I see tech industry news, but I don't know what's in the news. I didn't read anything today.
Other than Citrix and my hatred for it.
Actually, I read an article today on Educause about how AI could be implemented in education, so that's going to be kind of interesting.
Right?
I don't know if that's going to be one of our main topics or not, but I know we're going to talk a lot about AI today, but that's one of those where I'm kind of excited about how it's going to impact the industry that I work for. But more importantly, I think today we're going to talk about a lot of cybersecurity regarding AI and kind of how we think it's going to adjust like developers' jobs and all that junk. So the AI topic is real. It's kind of taking over everything. I'm kind of sick of talking about it, but let's talk about it anyway.
Yeah, it's okay. We've got Baldur's Gate in our tech news for this week as well.
Oh, that's a good point.
And you get to listen to me ramble.
Yes.
What are you rambling about?
Balls.
Oh, bowling balls?
Or golf balls.
Which one do you hit with the stick? That's a
Yes.
serious question. I'm sorry.
Let's start with our tech industry news. And so, Shannon, I think you actually brought up this first one earlier today, talking about how much of a pain in the ass it's been for you.
Yeah, NetScalers. Citrix, thank you. You have successfully made me hate you more, and I did not think that that was possible. Citrix had a remote code execution flaw in their NetScalers that allowed threat actors to take over the actual load balancer and then be able to pivot to your internal network using a service account that they were able to find through the remote code exploit. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of places that I do work with now use Citrix, and I have never really been a fan.
I haven't used it in like 10 years. And even then, I was trying to find ways to get rid of it.
Right. And it says from the article, it was saying there was like 640 servers that they found that's already been infected.
Yes. It was disclosed back in July, and they're still scanning for it out there. And people are still finding it. It's still a problem. Go out there, check your CVEs for Citrix, get your stuff updated if you can. And hopefully they don't try and sell you something new and tell you that you can't get upgraded.
I'm pretty sure that's the standard answer, right? You're into support, end of life, guys. We're not going to help you.
We're not bitter in this podcast at all.
Nope.
How about we move on to something a little bit more fun? I know, Kenny, you've been doing this. Baldur's Gate 3 finally released, and with 875,000 concurrent players.
And what's interesting about the concurrent players number is that they've been setting more concurrent numbers players records every weekend. I mean, it's only been out 2 weekends, but this past weekend was higher than launch weekend. But also, they haven't even launched on console yet. That's insane. And I remember seeing a tweet from the CEO saying, "Guys, please be kind to the IT team. I told them to only expect 100,000." So, and honestly, as far as launches go, it went really smoothly. The game itself is fantastic, and I'm really loving kind of this philosophical discussion that's going across the internet about like gaming in general, saying like a lot of developers, and I'm not going to say a lot, I'm going to say some developers came out and said, look, don't get used to this. This is not the new standard. This is an anomaly. And now there's this ongoing discussion of like, well, should it be an anomaly? You know, should this be the standard? Because what we see is Larian Studios being, or at least, perceived to be being this massive, well, not even massive, this studio that are gamers developing games for gamers just for the love of developing games. Whereas like most of the gaming industry has gone the same route as like television, where it's not really about the love of creating the media. It's about the love of money, right? We can see that with Netflix, where they create very fantastic shows and then cancel them the 2 seasons in, and everybody's like, why? And it's because it doesn't make enough money. It didn't hit their revenue targets. That's the only reason. And you see that with every game now, where microtransactions baked into everything. So much, it's basically there to milk us financially, whereas this game is just there to be a good game and nothing more, nothing less. And I've been ecstatic. I've played way too much of it.
That's awesome. I mean, we see that with movies too, as well, right? We're seeing constant sequels, constant like, hey, let's copy and paste, change the characters. But yeah, it's awesome when you can truly see the passion for something rather than just a cash cow.
I'm a little behind the times, and you'll have to forgive me because I'm still playing games from like 2010. What is Baldur, and why do I care about his gate only the third time?
So, Shannon, you actually...
I don't care about gates 1 and 2, but
if you're
I
going
need to care
into
about his third gate.
If you're going into old school gaming, you should know what Baldur's Gate is. So it's not that you're behind the times, it's that you've been living under a rock for 40 years. Baldur's Gate is a location in Dungeons and Dragons that has existed before all video games were ever created. Video games were literally built off of the basis of D&D back in the 80s. So Baldur's Gate came first, Shannon. And this one being the third one, Baldur's Gate 2 was what, 20 years ago?
Wow.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? This game took them 6 years to develop and come out. Why do you think the large stint between 2 and 3?
I would guess that for one, Baldur's Gate 2 didn't sell nearly as well as Baldur's Gate 3 has, but also I think that what they're doing is riding the recent success of D&D 5th edition. I think they started developing this around the time that 5th edition was released, right?
Right.
And D&D was not popular until then. D&D saw a big resurgence with 5th edition. It saw a huge resurgence during the pandemic. It's become so much more accessible because of 5th edition and because of products like D&D Beyond. So a lot more people are getting into Dungeons and Dragons and moving away from the 1980s, 90s satanic panic that, used to revolve around it. And now we're starting to actually see people kind of embrace the role-playing concept. And one of the things that people have said is how do you take D&D and turn it into a game? And there are even some diehard DMs who were sitting here playing Baldur's Gate 3 being like, I could do it better in my brain. It's like, we get it, but, not everybody has a really good group. So I think Baldur's Gate nails it.
There's 5 editions of D&D.
Actually, I think there's more than that, but yeah.
There's more.
How many editions are there?
7, I think.
Are we going to start seeing D&D, the Book of John, and open it?
No, they're actually working on the next version is called D&D 1, which is to try and reform and get away from labeling the editions the same way that they went away from Xbox having all of its numbers and Windows changing from... No, actually, that one's not so fair.
No.
Yeah.
This stuff.
No, they're trying to rebrand so it's not just counting so that it doesn't make everybody feel old anymore. Because D&D has traditionally felt like this is a game for old guys that used to get it in the newspaper. And now it's kind of turning into something that's a little more targeted towards the younger audience.
You say D&D and I think of Jack Black. I don't know why, but...
There's a lot of people who have D&D meaning different things. I remember during the saga for...
the one with the dragons?
The one with the dragons, thank you.
And Thrones of Games, yes.
Yeah, Game of Thrones. Everybody used to say D&D to talk shit about those directors. I now see some people saying D&D to talk about Dark and Darker, that game. It's a very common acronym, but it's Dungeons and Dragons is what I mean.
I'm just as lost as you are, Shannon. I'm here playing Nintendo Switch with my kids.
I will say, though, and I have to share one Baldur's Gate story. I got approached. I was riding a boat on a lake. I got approached by another boat by some dwarves saying, hey, yo, that's my friend's boat. What the fuck, man? Why are you on his boat? And where is he? And they board my boat. And instead of answering the question, I just push him into the water and keep going. It was fucking great. I love this game. No, that was the paladin whose name I can't remember. Shameless plug. If you want to see me play as Dunk, I stream on Thursday nights with my friend Chris.
What's your tag? I'm assuming on Twitch.
On Twitch, I'm the talent. I don't actually stream myself. My friend Chris is Rithwick Gaming on Twitch.
Nice. Well, if this recording works, it'll be down there. Hit more info. We'll put it up.
Thank you.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
not like this week.
It kind of is.
Let's go with our next item here.
Next topic.
So Snapchat. I know a lot of us really despise social media, but there's billions who don't. The users started freaking out when, for anyone who doesn't know, Snapchat has a thing called My AI, and it's basically for the lonely nerds out there who don't have any friends. I'm sorry, we're one of some of those. And it allows you to chat with them, right? You can have full conversations and all this other stuff. Well, it's not supposed to be able to post anything. Well, the other day it did. And so all the users freaked out that it posted something. It was only up there for a few seconds, but then it was gone again. But it looked like a ceiling. Like no one really knows where the picture came from, but someone thinks it came from somebody's phone. So
Most likely.
what's also interesting, what also happened in Vegas this week?
DEF CON.
We got a bunch of hackers. You know what happens when 2,000 hackers are challenged with breaking AI chatbots?
They usually succeed, last I heard.
So everyone over here on Snapchat is going, I don't know how this happened. We don't know why. It just freaked out. Everybody doesn't know how it happened. But meanwhile, in Vegas, there's a bunch of hackers attacking AI chatbots. Do you think there's a correlation?
Correlation does not mean causation, so I'm going to say yes.
So I think those are the three topics we found in the news for this week.
I'm going to say one thing, too, about like going to Vegas during these events like Black Hat, DEF CON, etc. I've never gone to one deliberately. I've been invited many times. The reason why I don't go is because I need to stay connected to my phone, and I'm afraid to walk in Vegas with a phone when those people are there. There's so many ways to just exploit a phone, take control of it, do whatever, steal data, and I'm like, nope, not doing that, not putting my workplace at risk. I know there's ways to get around it. I'm just I'm not brave enough. I don't trust those people, and they're way smarter than me.
Yeah, there's lots of stories from DEF CON that I've had in the past, and you're not wrong. Don't be bringing things there. Don't bring your credit cards. Don't use random ATM machines because they're probably all fake.
Literally, just bring like paper and pen and cash. Like,
Right.
go as old school as possible.
We've had sales reps go, and then when they get back, it's like, all right, hard drive destroyed. Thank you.
Well, we all know what deep freeze is. Deep freezer system.
That's true. Yes, I actually still
course.
use it to this day.
Intech?
No, it's owned by a company called Phoronix. They're based out of Canada.
Why can't they rig the slot machines? Why can't they have challenges on slot machines while they're in Vegas?
Help me out.
Because why would they help you when they can help themselves?
I mean, they would be doing it for themselves, but I might accidentally get caught in the crossfire somehow. Because we all know those things are ran off of Ethernet cables. You go into the casinos and it's like, press here to boot to Pixie. And you're like, uh-huh.
They're all thin clients. What would you expect? Do you still think the slot machines are those old, like, I'm going to pull a thing and it's mechanical? Like, no, they're all thin clients, man. They got to manage their images too.
It depends on how far west you go in Colorado. If you go to Cripple
Literally,
Creek, you can find some old ones.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, like, what's the difference between a casino and a computer lab?
Money.
There hasn't been a difference in a long time. It's just money. Yeah, you're right. It's context, but operationally, it's the same.
I give my dad crap all the time. I'm like, ooh, flashing lights, give me money.
Hey, I won money last time we went off of those.
Yeah, shut up.
So
No,
when do casinos start using AI? If we want to transition into that.
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
Why would a casino use AI?
I mean, I'm sure they'd use it to watch people.
Use
I mean,
facial recognition
Yeah.
algorithms. Yep,
exactly.
that's an easy one.
Probably eliminate some security guards using AI and using the cameras.
Well, it's just like the new rating system for games. They're wanting to put cameras into the game consoles so it does facial recognition, right? To say like, oh, you're not old enough to play this game.
That's some scary stuff.
I know
Oh,
quite a
don't
few
agree.
people who are 23 and look like they're 12, so I don't know how that's going to go.
Kenny was one of those for a while.
Hey,
I'm sorry, that ship's passed, Kenny. If you didn't
Yeah,
hear.
now I actually look like I'm as old as I am, thankfully.
Yeah, you bloomed last year. It was amazing.
I gained 30 pounds, asshole.
Blooming is blooming.
No, I'm very interested to see kind of how AI is going to be implemented in a few ways, right? And I had this same discussion when it came to like blockchain technologies with like cryptocurrency. I was very interested to see how it would be applied outside of what we're talking about all the time or what we're seeing in mainstream media, right? We always see, and I'm going off on a small tangent. I'll come back. We always see everybody talking about cryptocurrency and all of that stuff, which, in my opinion, and you guys can argue with me all you want, I think it's a scam. But when you look at blockchain technology itself and start to see how it handles transactions, and you see how it's starting to be applied in things like logistics, and you're like, oh, hey, you can use that for supply chain stuff. Like, that's already been done. So we saw how that was being applied in a way that's a little more creative than what everybody's talking about. What are we going to start seeing with AI, right? Like right now, we're seeing people talk about generative AI, and as far as like generating code, generating responses and stuff. We're not seeing how people are using AI for predictive technology yet, right? So I think it's going to kind of adjust the way that a lot of people think. I think it's going to be applied in the same way that we see search engines today. And I'm not the most future thinking, like forward thinking, creative individual when it comes to that. So there's probably a lot more that I have no idea about. But as far as like a casino goes, like I think facial recognition is just the tip of the iceberg. Like they'll probably use it at some point, like for their games to like predict where people are going to press this button, or how is this specific person going to respond to a blackjack dealer, and feeding a different card to give them more money, that kind of thing. I could see it being used in so many ways, ethical or not. But knowing that like casinos function off of I think it's a very slim margin that's in the favor of the player or the house. I can't remember. It's only like 52%, right? So they'll just mathematically control that margin and then use technology to tweak it up or down based on PR, really, or law, whatever works. But I don't see them ever doing it in a way that will ever favor an individual.
I think it'll always favor the house. Imagine being at a slot and then just resetting odds when someone new's there.
And whatever works to get people to spend more money, right?
Exactly.
And that will change more dynamically with AI than it does now. Right now, they have to be observed, and then we have to code something. Let the computer do that.
I think they've been doing that for years through pseudo-random number generators and things of that nature. I don't think we'd see so much of an AI implementation as far as changing the games, because they have that down packed. I think we'll see it more in the shifting of the jobs. Like, do we still need a dealer if I can put dealer bot right there and he knows how to interact with the bettor or the player in this instance, or create a Cortana better bot and put it into one of the machines so they have someone to talk to while they're being lonely and giving away their money.
They do have AI girlfriends. I see my ads on Twitter all the time. I'm like, really, dude? I see how it is.
I actually read about that. There was one girl who did it where it was like $24 an hour or something like that, or $24 a minute. I can't remember. She made like $750,000 the first week. And it was just an AI bot that just used her likeness and would not talk lewd. It would only do kind things, like just be a human, basically. But if anybody tried to like go past a specific non-family friendly line, it just wouldn't engage. And yet people still paid that much money for it. It's insane.
That's an awesome side hustle. Sign me up.
You're saying 1-900 numbers got lamer in 2023.
Not lamer, more advanced. Definitely better.
No, they're family friendly now. I can't tell it derogatory things and get responses.
I guess.
You're saying they took sex lines and turned them into kid-friendly conversations for $24 an hour.
Well,
hey, general public. More money.
Sort of. It's for the lonely people that don't have anything. I could see it being like a good mental health tool. I'm sure there's things other than just like, you're going to give me money so I can like be your companion and parasocial relationships and stuff. There's definitely that. But I can see in some cases, especially for those that are pretty secluded, like it could help a little bit with their mental health and help them like get readapted into the world. Like I want to look at it from like, the benefit of the doubt concept. But yeah, I don't think that's necessarily how it's being used, but it could be.
We can replace your therapist with AI for $24 a minute.
It's funny. I think someone did an experiment about that. They experimented with the idea of replacing your therapist and how easy it was, unfortunately. Just trying to let you think about your life, ask the right questions at the right moment, just so that you spill the beans and just really think about things and push yourself to actually think about your situation rather than soak in it and speak out. Nothing listens better than a microphone.
Replacing therapists and we're replacing dealers. What is it going to replace inside of our organizations?
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Hard to loop it.
Oh, thank you. He lubed it back.
Ooh.
We were definitely talking about how, how would it go for devs, right? You can go to ChatGPT right now and tell it, hey, give me a function that does something, right? And it'll spit it out. So how's this going to react against our interns around our entry level positions? How are new students going to be able to get into the industry? It's really some of the challenges that we are facing now.
Well, and what are you seeing, what are you hearing as feedback from senior developers? I think that was an important point.
Well, the senior developers are using it on a daily basis. They're able to do more with less now. They're able to get things done much faster than they did before. And to be honest, you don't even have to be very good anymore because AI now will fix your syntax in 3 clicks. No more are you hunting through your notepad, Dr. Howe, for your Java syntax error.
GPT doesn't work in Notepad.
Do you
Notepad++
think that
just fine?
I'm going to branch off onto a small tangent again. This is kind of my specialty. I'm sorry. Do you think that IDEs will start going into browsers to start using AI in that same way?
I think they already are.
Yeah.
Be integrated with Teams.
Microsoft they're branding their AI as Copilot. They have it for GitHub. They're trying to do that with Outlook. Maybe their final effort to replace Grammarly. They're trying to replace it with Teams just to help you kind of get your thoughts out and get you started. It's kind of replacing the intern. I think that's where interns are kind of in trouble. It's going to be hard to get an internship when I could just tell ChatGPT to do this for me and it'll do it quicker, unfortunately.
As a person that works in education, I find that concerning. And I'm not saying concerning in a negative way, but in a way that we need to adapt, and we need to adapt more quickly to what's happening around us, in the sense of, if we're now seeing companies and we're seeing industry go in and basically say, I don't need to pay interns anymore. I don't need to have entry level positions anymore because AI gives us that starting point already. And then our senior level devs can tweak that and adjust it and make it better, or it adjusts our syntax, etc. We don't need entry level positions like that anymore. Then all of a sudden I'm seeing things like employment pipelines from computer science departments having to shift, right? I'm starting to see things like, well, how, we need to start changing the way we teach. We spend a lot of time on fundamentals when maybe it's time to start focusing on well, let's leapfrog a little bit. Yes, fundamentals are important, but at the same point, as a person that works in higher education, I have to say that what's higher education's role in the universe? Is it to teach people how to think? Is it to progress human thought past a certain point? To an extent, yes, especially at research universities. But what's a majority of what our product is? It's people that need to enter the workforce and need to enter the workforce quickly. And so we need to start focusing on leapfrogging the kind of that entry level type of developer and getting them to a more intermediate level where they can jump in and kind of hit the ground running a little bit faster. So I think really we need to start embracing AI as a tool and encouraging them to use it so they could keep up with how the industry is going to be doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the problem becomes something we see in cybersecurity all the time is then people just want senior guys. And they're like, oh, you don't have the 12 years of experience on this product or in this field. And it's yeah, well, what am I supposed to do? So it kind of has to be a twofold, right? You have to kind of work with local businesses and be like, what do you need out of my people? I know with my organization, we really try to work with a local computer science program and say, hey, this is what we're looking for. This is what we need. If you want to really work, if you want to teach these guys how to code for mobile, this is what we need. This is the skill set. This is what we're writing stuff in right now. So I think it's a partnership, because otherwise, like I said, you're going to get into that cybersecurity realm where I need guys with 5 years of experience, but the only guys available are those guys that just graduated saying, hey, I need a job. I can figure it out.
To an extent, I think we're going to see a paradigm shift where that's not going to be so much of a problem anymore. We're going to have artificial intelligence that's going to fill that gap, which is going to create new roles and new jobs underneath AI to keep AI up and running. We're going to have legacy organizations that are going to need the more senior people. I equate it to Ford Automotive. When they came out with the assembly line, people were pissed because it was taking away their jobs. But at the same time, it created new ones for the people who had to keep the assembly line up and running. So what new jobs is AI going to create to keep it up and running, I think is the question that we should be asking.
I think it's going to eliminate more than it'll create. And I think that's the fear. But at the same time, you could, without going too much on a tangent, we look at our workforce, and our workforce is getting older and there's less population. So I think eventually it'll work its way out, and it'll work its way up, and we'll figure it out. But, then there's other problems that are well beyond this podcast that has to be figured out. So yeah, I think at some point we will have that paradigm shift, but I don't think it'll create as many jobs as it eliminates.
And to your point, Josh, one of the things that we talk about in higher ed a lot right now is the concept of the demographic cliff. A lot of people are worried that there's more people retiring than entering the workforce. We've already hit that point. Birth rates are on a decline across the planet. They're definitely not keeping up with death rates is the problem. And that's not because death rates are so high, although they have been the last few years for other reasons. But it's simply because people just aren't having babies, right? And so we're thinking about, how does that impact the workforce? How does that impact education? And my answer is, I'm not sure it matters that much. In the grand scheme of the world, the population of humanity needed to stop growing at some point, or we'd run out of resources, right? That's why we've got folks like Elon Musk trying to go to Mars. That's why we've got folks like David Attenborough saying, please stop having so many damn babies, right? There are a lot of ways to solve that as a society. And that's, again, outside of the scope of this concept. But from a technology perspective, the work ain't going anywhere. And if we don't have as many people entering the workforce, suddenly we can no longer meet the demands of things. And that's why we saw things like supply chain issues during the pandemic. That's why we see manufacturing delays and stuff like that. We literally can't hire people. Like you're seeing that with TSMC in Arizona right now, although that could be for all kinds of reasons. But there's just not enough people to enter the workforce to meet the demand of what's going on across the world. And so how do we meet that demand? It's automation. I don't see this as a threat. I see this as trying to keep up with the planet's demand.
Mm-hmm. I think it's still going to be that paradigm shift in the industry, though, right? Like what we've been talking about, until the older generation do retire and the old 9-to-5 job goes away. A lot of the people are not going to understand that, and they're going to be asking, "Hey, I need a senior developer." Well, there are none. It's going to be to a point where they just won't find those anymore, and they're going to have to shift into hiring the younger, the less experienced. And sometimes it's not even just less experience, right? It's like the number one thing that I've always told even my own employees is, I don't really care if you know how. I just need to know, can you find the information to do the job? And I think that's more important than actually knowing how.
I've been saying the exact same thing with my team. Like, I don't know or care if you have the skill set right now. I just need to know if you can figure it out. So I tell everybody, is like, the type of skill that I'm looking for is not networking, data science, virtualization. Like, I don't care about that. I care about problem solving in an abstract form. Can you problem solve independently? Yes, no. If yes, join me. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out. I'll send you to training. You'll be just fine. But if you lack those problem solving skills, then we're having a hard time.
Right. And I actually had an employee, it wasn't an employee at the time, an interviewee, pull out his phone and Google something right in the middle of an interview and give me an answer. And while some people probably would take that offensively, I loved it. I loved the answer. I love the audacity to be like, well, I may not know the answer, but give me 2 seconds and I can find you the answer.
It's resourcefulness is what that person just showed you, right?
Yeah, they work for me now. So
that's fantastic. I like the boldness of that. But I see this as, it's independent problem solving. It's being able to figure things out. And ultimately, it's just trying to get out of this old school mindset, right? Like, one thing I want to challenge is Josh saying, well, we need like 12 years of experience and blah, blah, blah. Well, do we really need years of experience to measure whether somebody can do something anymore? We've got the concept of human thought in our pockets now. Like, we literally have smartphones that do and can answer everything. And now we're getting AI that can provide answers should you have the critical thinking skills to, criticize it and tweak it, right? We've got a lot of tools that automate some of that stuff where you don't have to know the answer. You just move. And let's just teach people how to use those tools better.
However, we've been saying use this tool to be more efficient and to do better things. But I've been seeing studies and articles come out now saying that AI is getting dumber because it's starting to analyze more of our data, and I read the article a little bit and I put some stuff together. There's 8.1 billion people in this world. Only 2% of them have a high IQ, like high IQ type smart people, smarter than me. I'm a commoner. That means that there's 7.9 billion dummies and commoners in this world influencing ChatGPT and other AI bots.
I mean, it's the same argument with, the fake news or the false information, right? At some point, you're going to start feeding it some stupid stuff, and it's going to be like, okay, got it. And it's going to see the majority go this. I'm like, that must be the answer.
And we were all in high school when search engines really started to kick off, like Google, etc., right? And I know that some of our listeners are hopefully younger or older than that, but I know at least the four of us were probably around high school age when that happened. They had to teach us how to use that tool effectively, did they not? Like, they taught us, hey, type in these words, use these symbols to narrow down your search, and then scrutinize the results. Find something that's relevant. We don't have people doing that with ChatGPT right now. We have people, using it blindly and being like, this thing's dumb. And it's like, well, Google was dumb too once upon a time. It still kind of is. It's all about search engines in that regard. As far as my comparison goes, like, how do you use the tool, and are we training people to use it properly?
And that's 100% valid. They do that, and luckily in my kids' schooling, my kids are in elementary school, one's in middle school, and that's some of the stuff they try to teach them. It's like, all right, do this and then check your sources. Don't just believe the first click. It's not the I'm feeling lucky button and you just go off of what it's saying. We don't really have that with AI just yet. The best we have is our classic AI at this point, right? With Hey Google or Hey Siri type of AI and Alexa, but that's the classic stuff. And I just triggered my phone. But yeah, we have to find the best way to use it, and then hopefully teach our future.
So I think this was one of the next topics, was talking about cybersecurity and how do we protect against the new AI now that we know that it can create malicious activities.
I'm going to put my dummy hat on just because I want to have this discussion. Can anyone in here tell me what the difference is between machine learning, which we've been using with heuristic analysis, and AI chatbots?
Well, there's a difference between AI chatbots and machine learning for sure, but machine learning and AI.
AI in general, not the chatbot. $24 an hour, I can make a friend. But the good
I'm just getting you on your syntax. I'm going to let John take this one.
Kenny, hit your microphone.
Well, one of the biggest differences that's actually made a huge stride in machine learning is neural nets. Before, when we were teaching machine learning, we were almost teaching predisposition. We were looking for mathematical equations. We were looking for correlation. We were looking for data that would match up. Now,
behavioral trend.
Correct. To a point, yes. But now, no longer can we just train something based off of mathematical equation. Now we can teach them categorical analysis. Before, we never been able to do that. So the idea behind a neural net is having multiple layers of convolution. So if I train a model and I tell it the colors of the rainbow and I tell it wrong, AI will think that's right. It's going to be just like if I told a little kid. And so with neural net, all it's doing is it's saying, I know these 12 colors. And if I give it another color, it's going to be like, well, it's closest to this categorical. It looks the most like this. And it's going to say it's this. But the thing is we now even can provide statistical analysis on that to say, is 74% chance it's this. It's because it doesn't quite know. And so, but to be honest, that's exactly what we do. We don't know everything. Sometimes we take a guess. We call it an educated guess. And that's what AI is able to do too. Now, can it learn on its own yet? No, it still needs somebody to tell it what is what. But once you train a model in TensorFlow, whatever application you want to use, PySpark, you can train a system to be like, okay, this model can identify the animal. This model can identify the cat. This model can identify plants. Now you can download apps on your phone to say, identify this plant for me. And it's damn accurate because it's going off of characteristics.
Yeah, I mean, I've toyed with Google Lens quite a bit, and it's pretty damn good at it, identifying what certain things are. I guess with that, as kind of a follow-up, if neural networks are, say, an infant, 6 to 8 months old, where it's just like, here's how I move my body, and trying to learn that, I guess where would we put chatbots? At a 2-year-old mark? Where it's just like, just learning to talk, kind of learning to identify different things, like, what color is this? Green. What color is that? Oh, look, a car. Like, while it's driving by. Like, where are we? Where would you say we're at? Because you've definitely done a lot more, say, machine learning and stuff like that than the rest of us.
Almost identical. The only reason why chatbots seem so realistic is we've fed it everything. We've fed it all our literature. We fed it everything. It now knows the syntax of the language. Now, you can feed a chatbot a language that you made up, and it will learn it in less than a day, because it doesn't know the language. It really doesn't. All it knows is this is the syntax of the language. And I don't know if you've played much with ChatGPT, for instance. If you talk to ChatGPT, it has a methodology. It does the same thing every time. You ask it, no matter what topic it is, it gives you a noun, a verb, and it fills it in. The categories are the same. It always gives you 10 examples. It always gives you an intro and a summary. It does exactly the same thing because that is what the model was trained to do.
Valid.
Anyone who wants to learn more about this, go look up vectorization. Vectorization is actually how almost all AI runs now. Between vectorization and neuromapping, what it does is it completely converts it. So let's say you want to take an image and say, hey, identify this image. It doesn't really know the image. What it does is it takes pieces of the image, converts it into a numeric hash, and compares it to all the data that it's had in the past, and says, hey, which one is the closest to this number? And as soon as it finds that number, it says, oh, okay, this has ears, this has an eye, this is a cat. You know, that's how it does it. It doesn't do it based off of like the entire image, because then it would be very inefficient. It would be ineffective. But if it takes little pieces of the image, right, and says, okay, takes the eyeball, takes the ear, and basically cross cuts it and puts each one of those into a vectorized format, and then looks it up through a neural net, which is multiple nodes, then it gets very precise. But again, it's all based off the data you gave it. You feed garbage in, you're going to get garbage out.
So back to machine learning, do you think it would be any better than the machine learning that we've already been doing if it's in its infancy or even at a teenager level right now? Would you trust it to replace your first level SOC employee?
No.
Not yet.
No, even with the heuristic scanning that we have for our SOCs, you can get behavioral analysis. Anytime something is an anomaly, all it just means is it falls outside the curve. It has no clue. It could be completely valid. It could be, Shannon, you're downloading new firmware. It's just a big ass patch, and for some reason it's on a Saturday because you're trying to catch up. Well, that's going to throw an alert in the SOC because it's heuristic, right? It's because it's not normal. Stuff like that, I don't really call that machine learning. I know a lot of people do. It's statistics, it's analysis, it's data science. It's all it is. That's what 9 times out of 10, when someone calls something AI, that's what they're utilizing.
And actually, this is something that one of the students that I used to work with, his name was Luke, he explained this to me, it might have been 10 years ago, 9 years ago now. He said, I don't know what this whole AI thing is all about. And obviously, he's a little ahead of his curve and always has been. He was trying to tell me, he's like, AI is just automated statistics. I don't know why everybody's calling it intelligent. And to be fair, he's still correct, I think, to this day. I don't know if he knew how smart of a statement that was.
I mean, it's valid, right?
Yeah, I think it's word salad a lot. I'm sorry to say, but it is definitely word salad. The execs come down and said, I've heard these buzzwords, artificial intelligence, machine learning. I heard they're better. I want that. They have no clue what it means. And so what does the industry do? They start tacking AI on everything.
It's the job of the marketing team.
Next generation firewall.
AI-powered firewall. That's the next gen.
Well, and going back to the cybersecurity conversation, we're talking about how can AI be used as far as like an attack vector? What are the types of attacks that AI can initiate, and can they do it rapidly? Like, how does that compare to like botnets, so to speak? I know that we've all gotten to a point where like botnets and DDoS is kind of like a thing of the past. They still exist, but they're nowhere near the threat that they used to be. But knowing that AI can like predict and dynamically adjust its vector on the fly, probably faster than a human could type, like what's the threat there? What does that look like?
I think it's speed. I think that's the hard thing to defend against.
There's already a service, and I'm not going to mention their name, but I think it's neat and terrible at the same time. It's like a AI-powered Metasploit. You can pay for this service. You can go in and say, I want to use this attack. This is my target. This is how I want to deploy it, and it will craft it for you to use it however you want to.
Now then, can you pay them a premium and then they launch it for you on your behalf?
Oh, I'm sure you could, but to me, that type of stuff is scary. Writing a PowerShell script for me is kind of scary, but is kind of useful too. Whereas this AI-powered worm creator is scary and kind of malicious. I don't know why people would. Well, I know why they would do it. They want money.
Say they can, right?
Yeah, it's not the best use of the technology, in my opinion. I think we should be using it to make things better instead of using it to break into random things.
Well, the problem is we're going to have AI to defend against AI, right? Do you think a human has the speed to protect against AI?
We don't have the speed to defend against what we already have.
Exactly.
How would that
Right.
differ from like an IPS, for example?
Well, most IPSs aren't as heuristic as they say they are, right? Most
Right.
of us are still running on signature-based systems.
So maybe that is the new IPS.
Yep. And to be
Definition
honest, there's
updates.
already tools out there. So I use Elastic quite often. I use the enterprise version, and Elastic built what they call AI into their endpoint security. None of it is signature based, and all of the stuff is heuristic. If for some reason something's automatically now touching some kind of into the memory from a different perspective that's never done before, sometimes it pops up and just blocks it, just quarantines it, and waits for somebody to say, no, that's okay. And I've actually brought systems down to a crawl with it because it's overly protective, right? Because it's like, hey, wait a minute, this is not normal, block, instant. And as much as I hate it, I love it, because at least I know nothing can get out of hand. Unless I've told it that is normal, it's not going to allow anything else.
What kind of resources does that put on your endpoint?
Not any more than a traditional antivirus. So it's very useful. And plus, it's an all-in-one tool, right? I use it to collect my logs. I collect it. It's my SIM. It puts everything into an elastic data lake, and I can monitor, control, trend, everything. If I want to know if I have a certain version of a software, I can just search it. It's pretty easy. This is not an ad for Elastic, but at the same time, it's just like these tools are already out there. It's just they still are in their infancy stages, and I don't think as many people have adopted them yet because we're all used to what we're used to. We don't like change. A lot of us don't.
Well, and I would say too, a lot of people are still kind of, and I'm going to say that you're even seeing that with this conversation here. A lot of people are still kind of confused of what AI is and what that threat and risk is, right? How do we measure that? And how do we measure the value of the tool in response, right? And cybersecurity is often considered a risk mitigation investment in the sense of what's the incoming risk, what's the likeliness of that happening, what would it, what kind of damage would it do to the business, and what do we need to spend to mitigate that risk, and trying to keep that spend as low as possible, right? So how do we get them to do that about something they don't know about, something they don't understand, something that our own people don't understand?
And I think we've always started with threat modeling, right? We threat model and we try to mitigate the risks. And the problem is there's a lot of unknowns with AI. Like, what are the threats now? Are there new threats? Is there new things I need to mitigate, or just roll over and accept for it? It's so new that most people just don't know.
And then we get to go into like the future of quantum computing and how that's going to make it go even faster. Never mind, we're not taking that today. I hope I retire before that day.
Well, when you retire, there's always that balancing act that we always do, right? With LifeNCyber, we're always talking about, well, how do we balance this? Because on a day-to-day basis, we can't be coming home and worrying about AI attacking your system, every minute of the day. So I think, Shannon, you came up with the next topic for our balancing act for today.
Yeah, and to go off of that, life in cybersecurity is really not easy. It's stressful, and IT as a whole is stressful depending on the level that you're at, or I could even argue every level that you're at. I've been experiencing lack of motivation lately. Some people used to love their job. Now they're finding that they hate their job. It's common for people in this industry to struggle with mental health, and it's just in general terms called burnout. And I'd like to talk about how we can prevent that. Like me recently, I started taking up golf. I suck at it, but I'm out there doing it, and it gets me away from the computer, and I love it.
Well, it's kind of funny. I think I remember conversations years ago when we were still at CSU and stuff, and you used to be like, golf, that's not a real sport. You used to make fun of it, and now you're picking up as a hobby and finding a relief, right? Like an escape.
Yes, because I'm not
back then it was frisbee golf.
Things. Yeah, I'm not allowed to do the things that we used to do in college to get the same type of release.
You have kids, Shannon. Remember that.
Yeah.
I
think that's the key, though, right? Is just find something that disconnects. I know personally, I learned, I think, burnout probably freshman or sophomore year of college. in full honesty. I didn't never realize, as much as Shannon calls it the inferior sport, but baseball was my out. You know, I played it in high school. I played it all through my kid days. And once I didn't have it anymore, I didn't realize why I was dropping. My motivation dropped, or my grades were dropping, because I was just like, I don't know, but I don't want to do it. And that's when I realized, like, oh, that was my first sign. I guess my first experience with burnout was I don't have something that takes me out of it. And as much as we all like to say we didn't do it too much, but drinking wasn't a way out. It was fun. It wasn't something that worked, at least not for me.
Well, and as I like to call myself a serial hobbyist, in the sense of I am the only one in this room that doesn't have a family, like a wife and kids and all of that stuff. I live by myself with a cat. And so how do I turn my brain off from all of those responsibilities and such? And so I'm always trying something new. I'm always doing different hobbies, and I'm always trying to find a way to do them away from a computer, because that's just going to suck me right back into the conversation. I remember years ago, we've all had conversations about, I'm going to set up a media center. I'm going to do a Plex server, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to, DD work my router. And I'm like, I'm not interested in any of that. I just want it to be as simple as possible at home, so I don't have to think about it. I just want to go home and do something else. And so I tinker, but I don't really tinker with computers. I tinker with things that are different, like 3D printers. Like, I have an example right here. It's really, really stupid, but this is what I do in my free time sometimes. I 3D print sharks and paint them, and it is not just sharks, but that's the whole thing. It's just come up with something that gets your mind off of it, that helps you relax, and it's kind of like therapy, essentially. Cooking is that for me. I mean, I learned how to do homemade pizza this weekend, like that kind of stuff. It's just get your brain off of this stuff and take care of yourself. That burnout is a real problem.
I've even
Yeah, and I think. Sorry,
you're now a lake, John. You're mystical.
Is that a data lake?
I'm going back to my happy place, man.
I found that I at times can't even play video games or anything like that inside of the house, because it's connected to technology, and it will make me think about things at work. Like, I'll be sitting and playing a video game, and I'll be like, man, that TV would look a whole lot better if I could kick up the resolution and do this. And then I start working on it, and I'm like, all right, I need to take a break. I got to go outside. I got to ride my bike. I got to go play golf. I want to go bowl with someone. I got to meet John halfway in Blackhawk to play some pixie bootable stupid slot machine.
What's your problem with pixie boot?
It's dated. Get it out of here.
I don't know if you guys experience the same problem, but there's just sometimes that I don't want to look at technology.
No, that's valid.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's something that we're trying to convey, is just because you love it at the beginning, right? We all did. And to be honest, I think we still do. Mm-hmm. I just think there's a balance. And there's a balance that if you go too far into the deep end, you're going to start loathing it. You're going to start resenting it. Like, when you come home, you don't want to play video games anymore because you're starting to resent it. Now that you're playing golf and everything and things are starting to settle, hey, maybe you come back to it. Mm-hmm. So I guess any of you can say this. You can see my pictures. This lake. This is where I was this weekend. It was wonderful. Just taking a random hike out in the wilderness where I don't have to think about anything and just kind of get some exercise and hang out with the family was always, it clears my mind, right? So how do you guys feel when you are able to step away from it, for a period of time? How do you feel when you come back?
I can actually attest. Go ahead, Shannon.
I was just going to say I love it, especially if I can get away and meet up with friends and go that route with an activity. It makes my day completely better.
I can attest to a few different things, right? In the short term, like, I actually have learned to appreciate yard work, and I don't even own a yard. Like, I live in an apartment, so I go to Shannon's house and help him work in his backyard, because to me, it's one of those things where, like, it gets me away from all of this. It's nice, but I'm one of those people who burned himself out multiple times throughout his career and have had to take time off. And I find that most of the time when I'm starting to get really frustrated with my job, when I'm starting to get unhappy with, the way that things are going, it's usually not the job. It's usually me. And what I've learned about that is, like, I'll take a week away, or there was one time where I took a month away, and I just changed the way that I thought about it by taking that time to kind of reflect, like, what are my habits here? What are my routines? What am I doing here that's causing me to take on too much? or that's causing me to not disconnect from this in a healthy way? Am I staying too in touch? Do I have notifications on my phone too much? How can I change this where I actually get those breaks that I need, so that way when I come back the next day, it's better? And it's saved me from quitting my job multiple times by simply just taking breaks, saying it's not the job, it's me, and realizing that.
I think that's a great point. And I think that's a great takeaway. We all want to be dedicated, right? Come to it. It's okay to take time off. It's okay to step away. And I think some of us don't feel that, right? We're tied to that phone. I'm sorry if you are new to the industry, this is your leash. Get used to it. There are times where you've got to turn it off, put it away, walk away, because even if the building's on fire, there's nothing you can do about it. It'll be there when you come back, right? That's why there's other people. Rely on your team.
100%, especially in security where you could be worried about the stupidest things in the world. Use your do not disturb on your phone. I know I do. And, there's only a certain amount of people that are allowed to get through on that, especially overnight. And even though my SOC is one of those people, they literally don't call unless it's something concerning. I've had this SOC for 2 years and they've only called twice. So I know they're not going to take advantage of it as, some of my coworkers may, because they're like, I'm on a deadline and I need to get this. I'm like, is this deadline for real? Those deadlines, you got to remember and respect your coworkers and respect their time, because sometimes it can be someone else and it's because they're kind of pushing their pressure onto you. So just be mindful of that as well. If it's one thing to be calling someone at 5:05 and it's a whole nother thing to be calling them at 6:30 for something that could easily wait the next morning.
I think Kenny took us literal and checked out. So
he's back.
How bad is that microphone that when you touch it, it kills your camera too?
Microphone's fine. It's the cable.
It resets the settings.
Resets everything whenever I do it.
Oh,
that's my fault. But I fixed it.
That's great. That's great. Well, I think that's the great balancing act section for today.
Yeah.
On the term of AI, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Grammarly Go. So it's kind of funny, you were talking earlier in the stream that you're like, oh, we're looking to replace Grammarly. Well, what's funny about it, everyone's added AI to their stuff, including Grammarly. I don't know about you. I probably wouldn't have passed English class in college without Grammarly. It's helped me quite a bit over the years. And it's just something that, it's one of the recommendations I would definitely recommend for anybody who is getting into the industry, who's going into school, whatever. It's helped me write letters, emails that don't make you sound like an idiot. And it's great. And so I highly recommend looking at this. Now, Grammarly's free normally, right? For the basic stuff, but Grammarly Go only gives you 100 prompts a month. But so if you need help with something like Grammarly, tell me how to write a letter to my boss that I really need some time off. Let Grammarly write it for you. And it does a really good job at it. And so it does 100 prompts free per month. And I liked it so much I started paying for premium. Premium's $12 a month, and I really love it because I live on Grammarly. When you get into a professional industry such as ourselves, when you're writing a letter to that doctor, to that boss, to that person you've never met, that director, that VP, having proper punctuation and proper grammar goes a long way. It's something that I definitely would recommend for anybody who is looking to ensure that their emails and their stuff is as clear as can be.
Grammarly is great because I don't type English right. Because I don't know how many times. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times I'll write an email and I'll stare at it for like a half hour, and I shouldn't be doing that. I have better things to do with my time. So
right, don't
like
be
that hopefully are helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Save yourself some time.
Yeah, I don't know about any of you, but if any of you aren't using it either, use it. Just go for it. And I think that's one of the things is having my Jarvis, right? That's what I want for AI. I want to have that assistant that's going to help me on these stupid things that I don't want to do. To write this email, to write this memo, to tell my employee to take showers because he stinks and everyone's complaining. Like, I've been there and it sucks. So let AI do it for you.
Jarvis is cool until it becomes Ultron. Just saying.
Or Skynet. We're not there yet. We're not there. Shannon's protege will actually do that.
Edith replaced Jarvis. Thank you, Brain.
There you go.
My 2%.
We got some Marvel going on there.
Yep. All right,
Disney,
boys.
This is by no mean anything. Don't come after us, Disney.
No copyright,
Please
please. We really need to get this episode up.
Right. Let's close this out. I have ice cream upstairs, and my fat kid wants to really get to it.
All right, I think that's a wrap, boys. Thanks for listening. I think we covered some topics really well today. So great job, boys.
I think we did great.
Yeah,
thanks for listening. We'll look to be back.
Remember,
Make
if
this
you
a weekly
enjoyed
thing.
today's episode, subscribe, share, watch on all the
Yes.
platforms, give it to your friends. I don't know which platforms have like buttons or whatever, but click them.
Look 'em
Yeah,
all
remember, we're
up.
always here for you. So stay informed, empowered, and balanced in the ever-changing digital landscape. So if you ever need us, reach out.
Yep. And don't forget, you could drop your questions, your thoughts, episode ideas. You know, we we really got this one to the last minute. So podcast at lifeandcyber.com. Shoot us your emails, suggestions, put it in the comments, put it somewhere. We'll definitely read through it. And we would love to get ideas from people listening and kind of go different ways. Kind of like we said in our little half-minute or 30-second ad, you know, this is about more than just cybersecurity. It's about life, about different events, the things that help shape us as not only guys in the field, as managers, executives, or whatever we might be. Find your zen. We'll find some music to end this on. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.